So now I invite our first speaker, is Professor Manu Matu. He's an expert in so many areas that makes it difficult to pin down one that he's really focusing on, but he does work in health system, health policy research, not only in oral health, but also in many other areas of health and healthcare and health systems. He's currently working as a professor for dental public health and primary care at the Queen Mary University in New York, and is head of health policy at the Public Health Foundation of India. He's also a member of the Lancet Commission on Oral Health. Manu, please, we look forward to a thought-provoking presentation on rethinking the dentist-centered model. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Thank you to Dr. Benwa Varen, Professor Habib Benzian for inviting me to this wonderful conference, wonderful aggregation. Many thanks to Professor Ward for allowing me to represent Lancet Commission. I have been asked to speak on rethinking the dentist-centric model, and what I will be doing is I will be reflecting some of the work which we did when we were writing our Lancet papers, and some of my personal experiences from my work in different parts of the world. If I can move forward, yeah. So one of the first things which we have to realize is that no matter wherever we are, whether we are in a high-income country, living in a middle-income country or a low-income country, there are three contrasting but interconnecting realities in dentistry. If you are in a high-income country, the oral healthcare systems are predominantly treatment-focused or technology-reliant, and they are failing to address the priorities of the population because they are just stuck in an interventionist cycle. If you are in a middle-income country, the burden of oral disease is substantial, but the systems are not prepared to imbibe or absorb these oral diseases or to tackle these oral diseases, and that leads to problems of access and affordability. If you're in a low-income country, oral disease burden is slowly rising, as we have seen in the last 2 days when we were doing all our reality checks. But there are limited resources, which makes dental care only something which the wealthy or the rich people can afford. What we also discussed in these papers is this: well, whether we accept it or not, the current dentist-centric model is archaic. You know, we are still following the model which was developed 80 to 100 years ago to address the burden of oral diseases. And there are problems with this model. It is heavily treatment-focused. It is very biomedical in its orientation, very interventionist, and it's a very reactive profession right now. It's a very reactive model rather than proactive. And we have been hearing for the past 2 days that integration, alignment with primary healthcare and the universal health coverage are our priorities, are the top priorities. Well, if they are the top priorities, then we have to really think slightly out of the box whether this dentist-centric model is working or not. The other problem with this model is that it is disproportionate. People who need it, people who want it, are the ones who are not getting it. There are problems of access. There is problem of affordability. There is problem of availability. And this is predominantly because we have made it a very entrepreneurial, sorry for my English skills. We have made it it's a very entrepreneurial approach towards the profession. It is absolutely profit-driven. We are all driven by profits. And then there is this very poor alignment. You know, it just justifies the inverse care law, which we have been reading, that those who need it are the ones who are not getting it. And then there is a problem with the dental workforce, and I'll give you my own personal example. When I was a dental student, when I cleared the examination in India, my dental school was the only school in the city where I studied. When I was graduating, there were 16 dental schools in that particular city. And, you know, our schools, with all due respect, we train dentists to work in isolation, and which leads to limiting their access and efficiency. The other thing is this thing which I was talking about, that places where oral health care is required, where populations need oral health care, are the places where there are no dental schools, where there are no teaching facilities. And the places where there is already a lot of schools, you are getting more and more schools which are developed. So there is an imbalance in demand and supply. Then the focus is still on specialist care. We focus on creating specialists. And if the focus is on primary healthcare, we need more diverse workforce rather than creating more specialists. And if there is a slight doubt that this model is archaic or this model is not working, let us look at some figures. So I did some back of the envelope calculations on the global burden of disease data, utilizing the aspiration which has been laid down in the strategy 2030. If we continue with the business as usual approach, this is the blue line which we will follow. So if we are still following the models of workforce which we have right now, or the dentist-centric model, we'll follow the blue line, whereas the aspiration is somewhere the orange line. And no matter wherever you are in the world, whether you are living in a low-income country, a middle-income country, or a high-income country, the graphs are the same. The problems are the same. Now, here is what says something which is a food for thought for all of us. I think we have been hearing Dr. Campbell speaking, we have been hearing different other people speaking for the past 2 days, some illuminaries. And we have to learn from other disciplines on how they have done it, how they have utilized non-physician workforce. And one of the classic examples is by doing task shifting. And a very simple and easy to understand definition of task shifting is a process whereby tasks are moved wherever appropriate to health workers with shorter qualifications and shorter trainings. And this has resulted in reaping rich dividends, in strengthening these public health issues at a primary healthcare level, making their importance felt at a community level, and making them a national and a global priority. The classic example is the control or the management of HIV/AIDS epidemic in Africa. Well, the movement has been successful only because community health workers and nurse practitioners or the nurses were involved in treating HIV positive patients. They were the ones who really spread the awareness in the community. They were the ones who strengthened primary care systems. Let's look at some other examples. South Africa, PAC program, nurses were again used. And if you see the figures, they were able to control 68% of patients with diabetes, 82% patients with hypertension, 84% patients with asthma. The examples are numerous. Back home, I belong to India, and this is a Gadchiroli trial which we all talk about, where what we did was we introduced the concept of Arogya Doots, or female health workers, which were sent to the communities to talk about antenatal care, to talk about hygiene during pregnancy, to talk about the institutional births, to talk about how to take care of infants. These were untrained, or these were just normal ladies who were sent into the field. And look at the impact they had. The neonatal mortality rate in a country like India, where the entire health system is based on maternal and child health and adolescent health issues, it was brought down from 62 to 25 per 1,000 live births. So clearly, these are the examples from which we can take. There are numerous such examples. If you take community health workers, for example, barefoot doctors, Shastya Sevikas, Shastya Karmis, Mitanis, you take any example. There are various examples from all over the world which we can just follow, and we can take cues from it to develop our own oral health workforce. Now, it's very important that when we start breaking this dentist-centric model and we start embracing other professions, we need to recognize their potential. They can have an enhanced clinical role. They can have a role in research coordination and leadership, and these are all aligned with the 6 strategic objectives which have been mentioned in the WHO 2030 strategy. They can have a very, very stronger role in public health and primary care management, as well as training of the future cohort of students. And while doing this, we just have to keep in mind 4 S's. We need to think about scaling up. We need to think about maintaining or sharpening their skills. We need to think about salary issues, and we need to think about their social status. So that's very important consideration to keep in mind. Now, these things are very easily said than done. And in the limitation of time, I've just tried to squeeze everything on one slide. The problem, we have challenges, and we have got certain opportunities also. The challenges which we face are these, that we have got multiple categories of workforce, multiple categories of oral health workforce, very poorly defined, very inadequately regulated wherever you go. there is a general tendency or a resistance to task shifting which we feel. We still believe that it is a dentist's role to do things. Well, if the aspiration is to integrate it into primary healthcare, then I think we need to think slightly in a different way, that we need to approach task shifting. And then, there are these controls on health professional education, which can be due to funding cycles, which can be due to some other reasons, which limit flexibility to respond to needs. Well, if these are the challenges, then there are certain opportunities also. As I showed you in the examples, there is a demographic window of opportunity. If primary healthcare has to be strengthened, there is an opportunity that we do large-scale employment of women, as we have been seeing in different other disease condition control. And then frugal innovations or technology, the low-cost, homegrown technology, can enable efficient and safe task shifting. And this is something which we have to keep in mind. So just to end, what can be the way forward? And these are just my understanding from what my experience is. The health system where you are working, or the health systems which predominantly influence oral health practice in your country, should be the one which should drive the process of picking the right workforce. This should be the key driver. Rather than just doing theoretical work, I think understanding of health systems is very important. And I think competencies rather than qualifications, this is high time now that we should start valuing competencies more than education. And then these accreditations should be based on competency-based skilling. We need to reform regulatory structures to provide freedom and flexibility. And I think this is high time that we start promoting teamwork and we start embracing these frugal innovations which can drive the workforce forward. And, I think it is high time that dentistry should learn from other disease conditions, break this dentist-centric model. And I think this will be a key to move towards realizing universal oral health coverage, or this pipe dream of having integration at a primary healthcare level. In the interest of time, I'll just stop here. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a nice 1.5 days of conference future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manu.